Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ring 'em Up, a Rally Towel Sports podcast. Tonight, we will be giving our Week 1 reactions and taking a deep dive into the Baltimore Orioles. Let's get it.
It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
See it occur, and you look at Steph and Clay, and even Draymond with his lack of
Has it 2 in a row. 7 points for him. The twirling Doncic. Melting into the defense. The front carry. Strikes. Swing, fly ball. Well hit left center. Ronald Acuna has home a rookie rushing record for the Steelers.
Look, he came into this game averaging 3.67 yards per carry. 42nd out of 49 qualified rushers.
Freeze to begin the third quarter. It has been incredible. Here he comes again. Oh, goodness. And a Greek basketball god. And he was a great guy that teaches that
Here we go again. Do a little bit of podcasting. Let's get it, y'all.
Man, speaking of the Masters, man, did you watch any of that tournament today?
Dude, I had such a crazy day at work. I couldn't even tune in. I had a oh shit moment because I looked at my phone and I had like 38 text messages and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And then I saw y'all were just talking about the Masters and it was like 3:15. And I'm like, well shit, I've already missed 7 hours of it. I don't even know where I can start now. But you guys kept me informed. I was pretty quick up to speed once I just read through everything.
Yeah, no, you got all the highlights. It was an interesting day. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be seeing Tiger do that fist pump anytime soon on this weekend. but no, I mean, it seems to be a solid tournament so far. A lot of people scoring. So
yeah,
-7 was the top score on the day. So that's a lot. It's a lot for one round at Augusta.
That's spicy at Augusta.
Yeah, there's like a three-way tie for the lead between
Koepka,
Brooks Koepka,
Hovland, and John
Victor
Rahm.
Hovland, and John Rahm. John Rahm played fucking lights out today.
Coming back strong, right? I mean, he had a little bit of he's had a couple rough outings in a row, right?
He four putt the first hole.
Ooh.
He was +2 going into the second hole, and then he finished -7. So he gained 9 strokes. 9 strokes in 17 holes he gained. So that's just think if he didn't drop those first 2 shots, he'd be at 9 by himself.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Speed should be 6 or 7 under. He played like shit. He had a couple mistakes in the amen corner. But no, I was very surprised. Brooks Koepka played very well today. The only person from the Live Tour to really, step up and say, hey, I can still play golf.
Right.
You didn't see much from DJ. Right? Kevin Na withdrew immediately, which really? Killed one of my. Yeah, he withdrew after the second hole. He was +4, and he just quit. And then interesting.
That's kind of soft, right? To do that. I mean, I guess I understand.
I mean, unless he was just like, you know what, it's only going to get worse from here. Like I'm just I don't think anybody quits unless they're like dying. This is a Masters, so you got to come back.
So I'm saying you get the opportunity. To get the opportunity to play in the Masters and just quit on 2 holes seems kind of like a puss move. Maybe he's battling injuries, or I'm just going to chalk it up that there were injuries involved, and that's the reason why you bail out, because there is no other reason why you bail
Tiger Woods can't walk, and he still played 18, so I don't want to fucking hear it.
Exactly. I did see a fist bump after a birdie this morning that he a pretty long birdie putt.
It was a good putt. It was a good putt. He was who was he? I'm trying to remember who he was paired with today. I'll tell you the one pairing that I liked though. I liked the Scheffler pairing with the amateur that shot lights. He was -4. He finished around no bogeys. Amateur kid. His college coach is on the bag, and he came out and shot -4 today. He birdied the first and eagled the second and was -3 through 2. And just like off to a super hot start. He was the first guy to do that in like 100 years. And then Sam Burns comes out. It's like 10 minutes later. He was the next grouping and did the exact same thing.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Crazy stat. Well,
I can't imagine that.
Enough about golf. baseball.
No, it's good. It's good.
This one's about. I mean, it also involves swings, just at a different object.
Right. All right. So tonight we'll go a little bit through some of the just a quick recap on week 1 of baseball. We've officially hit the 7-day mark, or 7 days of baseball, our regular season baseball, I should say. So Bobby and I will give our quick reactions to any surprises, either whether it's teams, players, rotations, et cetera. And then we're going to be talking about the Baltimore Orioles tonight, the lid that you are wearing on your side of the screen here. Bobby and I talked about before we kind of putting the series back together, what we wanted to do. And we decided we were going to talk about a few teams that we haven't really talked about before. And Bobby said he wanted to talk about the Orioles. And I said, in the words of Russell Wilson, let's ride. So let me
hold it in.
So let me hear your what's your week 1 reaction to the Major League Baseball season so far?
Wow. I mean, if I had to put it in one word, wow. The amazing difference that pitch clock makes.
It's insane.
It is unbelievable how much of an impact that really does have on the game. I'm trying to remember who it was through a game in 2 hours and 7 minutes, or it was an hour 57 or something. Complete game or whatever it was. Who was that?
That was just I can't remember off the top of my head, but
yeah, like 2 hour game, just start to finish, just lights out. Like,
yep,
I couldn't imagine. Like, you're not even like 4 beers in at that point. Like,
I've seen a couple of different things myself. One of the things I saw that I thought was pretty funny was this lady posted a TikTok, and she was like, I'm not a fan of the pitch clock, and not for baseball reasons. I'm just disappointed that I can't drink a beer an inning like I used to.
Yep.
Right. Like I think that's one of the biggest change. Right. So we've seen 17 minutes on average shaved off a game so far to start this season. Longest game was, or one of the longest games, I believe, or second longest game was opening day with the Red Sox and the Orioles. Opening day 10-9 game took about 3.5 hours. But the average game right around 2 hours and 46 minutes, 48 minutes right now, which is phenomenal. I saw another post from a longtime baseball fan, a guy that was in his mid to late 50s, that stated, I took my wife and my son to the game, and his wife said, I couldn't even look at my phone because everything was happening so quickly. I think that sums it up right there, right? Like,
that's the point.
Yeah, if you're in a position as a casual baseball fan, or even like an unsure baseball fan, there's a lot of those right now, right? There's a lot of people who are unsure how they feel about the game. And
absolutely.
You go to, say, I don't know, a Reds game on a Wednesday night, and it starts at 7:10, and you're in the car by 10 o'clock after walking a couple blocks to the parking garage. You're like, that's pretty good. Because there were a lot of times when it was 10 o'clock and you were looking at your phone, and you look up at the Jumbotron, and it's
top
the
of the
sixth inning. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think you're right. It's integral. It's bringing a lot of people back. There's been more viewership on MLB TV, and obviously there's some other reasons behind that.
Sure.
More viewership on MLB TV than there's been since 2017. I think that's huge. I mean, to be able to ingest game after game after game to its completion, that's a big thing, man. Right? Like, if for me as a baseball fan, I can watch a 1 o'clock game on a Wednesday and then get to a 4 o'clock game, and then I can still watch the Reds if first pitch is at 7:10, and I'm not really missing anything from the 2 games prior. Right. And I think that's important, because you're getting, as a fan, you're ingesting the game better, right? Because you're more engaged. You're learning about players deeper into the game. You get to learn about guys in the bullpen. You get to see guys come off the bench, different strategy. It's fun. I think it's making baseball fun again. It's entertaining to watch. It's a lot more runs too. I think that's something that's impacted by the pitch clock and the lack of the shift, and even additional base, the length or the size of the bases. Being able to cut into the bag and get to the next bag sooner. I think there's an important piece to that as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the pitch clock's the the big winner here. And,
Yeah.
obviously there's some things that have happened that maybe have some naysaying to that, like the Manny Machado incident from Tuesday night or early Tuesday evening. Yeah, where it's like a full count, 2 outs, runner on third. He takes time, steps out of the box, steps back in, asks for time again. He can't get it. Can't get time again. So strike 3, innings over. He immediately gets ejected. So,
of course.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of guys get ejected for violating this rule because it's hard, man. Because there's the side of where it's really fun, and then there's the side where it's really hard because you got one off season to completely change your strategy to hitting and pitching too. I'm not taking anything away from how hard it is to adjust as a pitcher and keeping rhythm, but as a hitter to take away 8 to 10 seconds from a hitter, that's a lot. There's timing to that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, but as far as pace is concerned, base stealing has been it's just made the in between electric.
Yep.
And I think that's where you're getting a lot of newer fans and a lot of disgruntled fans with saying the game's boring, back and interested because there's always something going on. Yeah. There's always the potential that somebody's going to steal a base, or that somebody's going to the game just moves.
It does.
It makes them have to think so much quicker on their feet about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And there's a lot of guys that are adapting very well to this, and there are guys that are not.
Right. Yeah, I think an interesting piece to that too, and it kind of coincides with the bigger base pitch clock comes together is only being able to throw over a couple times. And, Ronald Acuna, every time he gets on base, he forces 2 pickoffs and you can't throw over again.
And then so he just gets a free base.
Yep. So I think that's a part of these rule adjustments is, if you're going to understand and comprehend the rule itself, you're supposed to take advantage of it, right? It's not like when teams were shifting 7 people to one side of the field, the guys weren't still bunting down the third baseline, right? So why not take advantage of a new rule? And, pitchers are going to have to figure out workarounds to that. And if that means more stolen bases, great for fans, more difficult situations to be in, more opportunities for pitchers to work out of jams, which I think is almost equally as exciting as a base hit, watching a guy get into, runners in scoring position with less than 2 outs and figuring out how to work through it. So so far, I think all of that's been successful. I have no qualms with anything that I've seen from the rule change. I think I know there's still people that believe otherwise, but as a person that ingests a game to a game and a half a day, it's been pretty nice.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing you have to understand for the baseball purists, for any of those in here that are just against everything that's happening is you have to be able to grow with the times and adapt and overcome. Mm-hmm. You can't continue to do the same thing or else you're going to get, run out of the mainstream, sports culture. Yeah. You've got to continue to adjust and make things exciting for fans. And that's going to come with rule changes and things that a lot of people would, quote unquote say are, BS and not good for the game. But I am completely on the other side of this argument. I think these are great for the game. I think it adds pace. It just reminds me, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's just imagine basketball without a shot clock.
Sure. It used to be boring.
Right.
It used to be very low scoring. I mean, look at the difference in total points scored from, it's or similarly like basketball before the 3-point line, right? The larger base is the parallel to the 3-point line kind of in this scenario too, right? Where, you're taking a game that was already exciting and creating these shots, and now the NBA or basketball as a whole has evolved into this thing where you could be a 3-point specialist and that's your thing, right? And we're going to get back to guys that are bag specialists and stealing bags and getting in scoring position. So I love it, man. I appreciate you sharing your opinion on it, but I think it's all been pretty good. Any teams that you're surprised about so far, good or bad?
You were literally reading my mind because that was going to be my question to you. And it comes out of the NL Central, and surprisingly, it's not the Reds, it's the Cardinals.
I know.
Sitting at the bottom, 2-4. They had a good opening series against the Blue Jays, but then they just dropped 3 in a row to the Braves. So
bad too. Not close games.
No, not a single one of them was within like I think 3 or 4 runs. Like
3
they
runs,
were not even close. So yeah, I mean, slow start for them. I mean, that's really I can say it's a shock because they are sitting at the bottom. I kind of want to take a picture of that and then snap it to Tez and Earl.
Yeah, happy birthday, Tez.
Happy birthday, Tez. The Cardinals are in last place.
That's right.
Happy birthday to you. But no, that's really the biggest thing for me. Out of the NL side of things, that's just not anywhere you expect them to be. Right. It's the Cardinals. They're a perennial playoff, championship contending team. So you just expect them to always be on the top, and when they're not, it's definitely different. Anything for you? Any teams shock you?
Other than the Cardinals, I think a team that's surprised me is actually the Texas Rangers. I mean, they're scoring. I'll say 2 teams, right? Tampa Bay's undefeated. They're the only undefeated team in baseball still. I'm not overly surprised by that, just based on the quality of pitching that they have and the young talent that they have. So I'm not shocked by that, but I am surprised by the volume of runs that the Rangers are putting up here. Let me give you some run totals for them.
They scored 16 against the Phillies. Oh my God.
Yeah. So through 6 games, 5 against the Orioles, 2 against the Orioles, nothing against the Orioles, 2 against the Rangers, 16 against the Phillies. But almost all of the runs that they're scoring are on home runs. I think that's the thing that's surprising me the most. Wow. Is the quantity of power that's coming out of Texas. Simeon with a home run, Nate Lowe with a home run, Adonis Garcia with a home run, Josh Young with 2 home runs, Grossman with a home run, Mitch Garver with 2 home runs, Brad Miller with a home run. So 9 home runs through 6 games. I think that's something to note. Team batting average of almost 270 through 6 games as well. That's awesome. And then on the other side of the hill, I've been very surprised by the slow start of Jacob deGrom. 2 starts with almost a 10 ERA. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's even given up a couple home runs. He's given up a home run, but that's surprising for him. He's not a home run pitcher, right?
It's not very DeGrom-like.
It's not. And, through 9 innings, he still has 18 strikeouts, but he's also given up 6 runs. So it's just, I mean, I think we kind of talked about him a little bit when we put together our lineups, that there was going to be a point in time where he would slow down a little bit. And
just a matter of when.
Yeah. So I don't think that I'm not coming on here and saying that he's going to suck, right? Like, he has 18 strikeouts in 9 innings. He's not sucking by any means, but I think there is something to be said about when you change teams and you change dynamics, and there are some growing pains when you run into a new organization, and I think he's kind of feeling a little bit of that. But I think that the Rangers are going to be a team that gives him pretty decent run support throughout most of the year, so I don't think he's going to have a ton of concern there. But other than that, I mean, I am surprised that the Brewers' only loss is when Corbin Burns started.
You would think if they're going to lose a game, it's not with him,
right? And he came back and won his last start, but they're hitting the ball very well too. I mean, Brian Anderson is hitting 500 through 6 games or 7 games. That's pretty fucking good. I'd say at the major league level, that's pretty damn impressive. But I think my biggest surprise so far has just been the Texas Rangers as a whole. I'm interested to see how the season shakes out for them, because they've spent a lot of money in the last couple of off seasons, beefing up offense and pitching. So I'm interested to see where that shakes out for them out there in the AL West. It seems kind of, in the short season so far, open for grabs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, no shock to me. The Guardians off to a hot start. 5-2. Yeah, I was gonna go over like the 1-loss teams. You have basically them at 5-2, the Brewers at 5-1, and the Braves at 5-1. So
yeah, no shock on the Braves.
Yeah, no shock on the Braves either. I mean, they're stacked. They have a very good potential coming out of the National League and and headed to the World Series this year, obviously. But as they have in the last couple of years, it's just always sad that Freddie Freeman's not a part of that ball club.
It's weird, man. It is weird looking at first base and seeing Matt Olson still. I mean, we got a whole season of it last year, and it just doesn't look right. It feels uncomfortable, and Matt Olson's no slouch at the dish either. But it's certainly been an adjustment, and that young rotation in Atlanta is just dealing insane.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of seeing, and I'm making a statement. I'm not making this a fact, but we're seeing 3 young arms in Atlanta, very similar to what we saw in the 90s. And it's 2 righties and a lefty again. It's so weird. Like, it's kind of a full circle moment, right? You look at Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, and Max Fried, all guys under 30, all guys that, pitch very differently, and their approach is different to the game. And it's very similar to the trio from the 90s in Atlanta, and they're going to keep winning.
Yeah. Every single game that they've won this year so far, it's been by 3 or more runs.
Yep.
So
yeah, a lot of offensive production there too.
A lot of run support too. It's gonna definitely help out that pitching staff.
For sure. But all right, man, you ready to get into the team we're going to be talking about tonight? These Baltimore Orioles, this young, vibrant Baltimore Oriole staff. So how do you want to roll through this, man? You want to just go like play? You want to go position, pitching, future? How do you want to go through it?
Dealer's choice.
Right,
I don't care.
Let's talk about the current lineup of the Baltimore Orioles. We'll start there, and then
sure.
We'll digest and I'm sure we'll get into some banter here as we go through. But walk me through what you think are the keys to kind of the somewhat success that we've seen so far early for Baltimore.
Well, I mean, they're 3-3. They split their series, 2-1 and 2-1. Obviously, one in their favor and one not in their favor. Their opening, but the things I've seen them do well, it's just string hits together, and they're not hitting a ton. I mean, they have home runs on the board. Don't get me wrong, they're hitting home runs, but I don't feel like it's anything out of the ordinary. I think it's just some quality run production there, and even watching the Rangers Orioles game from. Well, I think that was Monday. Or what's today? Thursday? Tuesday. Goodness. I've had every day this week wrong. I thought today was Wednesday. So for the longest, very happy to discover that it was in fact Thursday.
We've all been there.
Yeah. So that's like the White from The Office. But no, I mean they had a couple what I would call cheap home runs. Mountain Castle hit one off the foul pole, and I think Mateo had one squeeze over the wall in their win on Tuesday. But I think really the thing that's going to get them going is just making sure that they're getting on base. And their on base percentage as a team is very, very, very good. It's plus 300. So any team that can have a plus 300 on base percentage is going to put themselves in a good spot to score runs and win games. Yeah. So really like what they're doing from a discipline perspective at the plate.
Okay. Any marquee players? Charlie, thank you for liking the stream. Appreciate you coming in. Any players in this lineup that you think are worth discussing?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few. Obviously you've got Gunnar Henderson, the rookie, third base, having a decent start to the season. He's not really seeing the ball too great right now. He's hitting 125, so just expect him to get better. Adley Rutschman's having a very, very, very solid start to the season, as we all expected him to. I think he got hits in his first 6 plate appearances. Yeah, and then he's kind of cooled off since then. But I think the guys to keep your eyes on, Adam Frazier, their second baseman, current OPS 1127. He's just been dominant at the plate, hitting 353. Just really anchoring that infield for him. You got really 3 guys. You got Frazier, Hayes, Austin Hayes, their outfielder, and then their shortstop. All three of these guys on base plus slugging is 1,100 plus, which is insane. That's the top of the lineup right there, at least 2/3 of it. And they're producing, and they need to stay consistent throughout the season to make sure that obviously that pitching can get the run support that it needs to continue to win ball games.
Sure. Yeah, I think Jorge Mateo is actually a pretty interesting part of this lineup because you're looking at a guy who I think is going to benefit almost the entire, or is definitely going to benefit the entire year from the increase in size of stolen base to the bases. Already with 4 stolen bases to start the year, him and Cedric Mullins both. But I think he's a guy that you're going to see benefit a lot from that. He's not he has started the year with 2 home runs, but he's a base to base kind of hitter. Yep. So I think you'll see him. I think he's a guy that could get to 50 stolen bases this year, maybe 60, depending on if he continues to stay hot. Looks like his glove has improved. That was one of the question marks for Jorge Mateo as he kind of made his way through the ranks. Is he going to be able to get the glove to match the offense? Because he's always been this two-tooled offensive weapon, but seems like the glove's getting a little bit better. But I think my biggest takeaway from looking at the Orioles lineup and kind of picking it apart is they're young. It's young. It's a young lineup, right? We didn't even get to talk. We didn't talk about Cedric Mullins. We barely talked about Ryan Mountcastle. You briefly touched on Austin Hayes, Anthony Santander. Like, there is so much youth in this lineup, and when you look at an organization like Baltimore who doesn't spend the money that the Mets, the Yankees, the Braves, the Dodgers, that these teams spend, this is all either free agent signings, trade deals, or developed talent, right? Most of it being developed, drafted talent. Obviously, Adley Rutschman being a number 1 overall pick, Gunnar Henderson being a number 1 overall pick, Grayson Rodriguez, who we'll talk about in a little bit, being a first-round pick. So there's just a lot of young talent that Baltimore is doing a very good job of getting ready quickly, right? Adley Rutschman is one of the best college baseball players of all time, and he was ready to hit at the major league level within 18 months of being drafted. So there's just something to be said about the ability to get talent where it needs to get to, and doing the front loading, right, of the scouting and figuring out true need. And Baltimore is an organization that has immediate true need, right? It's not like a Los Angeles or a New York where you could draft now to play later. Baltimore's drafting now to play soon. Similar to kind of a scenario like the Reds are in, right, where you're drafting guys that are proven in at least 3 parts of their game, so that way you can work on the other, 2 to 3, wherever you want to call a 5-tool player, and get them ready to go. So I love the youth of the lineup. I think Cedric Mullins is a guy that we didn't even really discuss, but 2 years ago, 30 home runs, 30 doubles, close to 30 stolen bases. So if he can continue to produce, I think that's a big piece for them at the top of the lineup. And then, Ryan Mountcastle's a guy that has the ability to be a 40 home run hitter based off of, just his ability to put bat on ball and pure size. So I think it really, for
his
him,
power is unreal.
Yeah, it'll depend on for him what they decide to do, if they're going to keep him at first base or if they're going to slap him at DH and let him just hit, and maybe put Anthony Santander at first base or something. So, I like the lineup a lot. I'm interested to see how Gunnar Henderson works through kind of the early. He just seems he's nervous, right? Like, I watch a lot of his at bats, and he's got 9 strikeouts through 6 games, and it's tough when you're 21. I think he's 20. He just turned 21, and trying to figure out how to hit a baseball at this level. And 2 years ago, you were in high school. So 2 years ago,
it's a quick ascension to. I mean, that'd be like us going out and playing in the Masters. It's just a different level, it's a different speed, and there's some people that can adjust to it quickly, and some that can't. Most that can't. So it's definitely going to be a transition. But you're right, man. He looks nervous. And he just, once he gets settled in, like I said, he's hitting 125 right now, which is not great. And that's probably in his head too. He's like, shit, I'm playing like every, if you're a competitor, you're an athlete, you don't want to come out of the gate slow. You want to start hot and continue to be hot. And obviously it's not the case. So he's going to have to find the grit somewhere and just get through it. But I believe that he will.
I like it. All right, let's talk about the rotation for the Orioles. Not a spot that people are dialed in on, to say the least. So walk me through what you think about the current status of the Orioles rotation.
1 through 3 is good. 1 through 3 is good, and then after that, it's a little dicey. Gibson's been fortunate enough to get a lot of quality run support in his 2 starts. He's let up 6 runs, so that's not really anything to write home about. Opponents are hitting 273 off of him. He's got a sub-1 WHIP, so I mean he's putting quality starts out there. He's got 12 inning pitch, so obviously that's 2 quality starts, which you can't really be mad about that. In 2 wins, Grayson Rodriguez, he had a short outing, 5 innings, wasn't exactly a quality start there. He allowed 4 hits, couple runs, but for the most part controlled the game pretty well. Only let up 1 walk. So looks like they're controlling the pitch clock well. I think for these young guys, I think that's really going to be the biggest transition that they're going to have to figure out. Because like a lot of the seasoned guys, like you see it with Max Scherzer, like he is in love with his pitch clock. And for these young guys and the nerves, I think they're going to have to do a better job of just really controlling and commanding the game and just being on the mound with confidence. Obviously, the worst start that happened was Bautista. He didn't even make it 3 innings. But did he get hurt? I didn't see that. Because he didn't really have like a bad outing. He only let up 3 hits in 2 2/3. I need to look that up.
Yeah, maybe look into that one. But yeah, I think it's interesting, man. I think when I look at this, when I look at the starting rotation for Baltimore, a lot of it is just it feels kind of meal pieced right now, right?
Yes.
Because we'll get into the prospect stuff here shortly, but. A lot of it. I mean, Kyle Gibson's a guy that was a middle to back end rotation guy for the Twins and the Rangers over the last couple of years. And, now he gets to Baltimore and he's the opening day starter. And, we had talked about Grayson Rodriguez maybe not making it right away. And then the Orioles pulled just based on the new CBA with service time, they pulled the trigger on him, brought him up right away. And, I think that watching, I went and watched back his debut. And it was interesting to watch him pitch. He seemed kind of, tensed up. Again, you're making your Major League Baseball debut. You're going to feel not everyone's Dontrelle Willis just goes out there and throws gems for, the first 10 outings. But I think he looked the walk that he had, he didn't miss a lot of pitches, right? It seemed like that he had very good control in terms of location, got a lot of guys into good pitching counts. The runs that he gave up, it is what it is. He didn't give up a home run. I think in his debut, I think that's important. That's a thing to note. Every other starter for the Orioles has given up at least 1 home run in every start. So, I think this is just this is going to be the thing that's kind of hinders them from getting and making a playoff push is. Grayson Rodriguez is one piece, and he's not going to turn into a Hall of Famer in 2 or 3 starts. It's going to take him probably well until the All-Star break to get mojo and figure out how he works at this level and make the necessary adjustments. But Felix Bautista is a good closer. I think he's a guy that you can hang your hat on a little bit. He's a decent closer. He throws a lot of strikes. I think that's the big thing is strikes. And as a closer, you're just trying to get in and get out. Mariano Rivera said it best. He wanted to be off the bump, on the bump in less than 60 seconds. That was basically his objective as a closer. So I like at least him. And then you look at the rest of the bullpen and it's just kind of a question mark of, have I ever heard of this guy before? I got to look this guy up. But it's again, that's a part of being a small market organization. You gotta figure out how you're going to put a 26-man roster together and when you're going to bring guys up to fill the rest of that 26-man roster and who you can create some vibrance around to trade and get what you need back.
No, absolutely. Absolutely hit the nail on the head there, sir.
All right, let's talk about prospects. So we talked about Gunnar, we talked about Grayson. What does the future for the Baltimore Orioles look like in a perfect world where they don't have to trade any of their top prospects?
I mean, it looks pretty damn good. I mean, if you're the Orioles, you're excited. You are elated. I can't think of enough adjectives to describe how excited you are. I mean, just this season alone, they've got 8 guys that aren't in their aren't on their roster right now. They're scheduled to come up and play between pitching and infield and outfield, just everywhere. And I don't know if there's that many teams that are that deep, at least right now, with people coming up to replace the up and coming. So I think you're pretty excited. Who are you looking at right now? Who's your guy that's not up right now that you're excited to see?
Man, if I'm going to go pitching, I'm probably leaning more towards like, I don't know. I guess you just got to say DL Hall, right? Because he's a guy that's probably going to make a debut at some point in time this year. Like I said, we already saw Grayson. Position-wise, I think an interesting person that we see probably pretty soon is Jordan Westberg. College World Series winner, back-to-back College World Series winner at Mississippi State. Fun fact about him. Monster power. I think we probably end up seeing him, I don't know, maybe at second base. Just kind of depends on what they want to do. I think Adam Frazier's a guy that they trade at the trade deadline. That's the reason why you pick him up as a free agent, and he's giving himself the opportunity to go somewhere else and, hopefully negotiate longer than a 1-year deal. And then I think you get to see Jordan Westberg slide right into the infield after they're able to deal Frazier every day. But, obviously Gunnar Henderson is a third baseman. You're going to have a hard time beating out the guy that was their number one prospect until he was considered an active roster guy. So I like Jordan Westberg a lot. I think he's a guy that has the opportunity to be a 25, 30, 15 stolen bags. Isn't going to kill you with the glove. So we'll see. Yeah.
No, I mean, I like that as well. I think Colton Cowser, another guy to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
6'2", 6'3" outfielder, good plate discipline, left-handed swing. You love to see that out of anybody coming up. Just the swing from the left-handed side of the plate is just much better than the right for some stupid reason. But no, I think you'll see him at the towards the middle to end of this season. He's got a decent arm. I mean, where he's gonna earn his paycheck is at the plate. He's a kid that can hit. He sees the ball well. It's going to be interesting to see what he does and throughout his AAA career in Norfolk and obviously once he gets called up. So.
Yeah, fun. He's a Sam Houston State guy. Was the best hitter in college baseball at Sam Houston State. So it just goes to show you that in college baseball, it doesn't mean shit where you go to school at all. It just matters if you can hit and play the field. Right. Charlie with a question saying, Pete Rose went from AA to the majors and won Rookie of the Year. Do the Orioles have a gym like that? Gunnar Henderson was that guy, and now he's on the active roster. He was the guy that didn't have to play there. He spent limited time in AAA to get there, but. Charlie, something that I had said earlier that, doesn't fit for Baltimore is that they draft for right now. So a lot of organizations do use AA as your MLB prep because the kind of the history of AAA, at least over the last few years, is it's a lot of times where players' careers kind of fail out or rehab, or it's kind of like the intermittent stop if you're kind of bouncing back and forth on that 40-man roster from minor leagues to the pros. But, the Orioles are kind of in a position where all of their top talent is sticking in AAA right now in Norfolk. And then the guys that are in AA, for example, like a Heston Kjerstad, who's, again, another outfielder plus power. He's hanging out in AA now, but to me, he's a guy that they utilize as – in 2 to 3 years, right? So they're just not in a position where they can fault or just kind of have AA as the feeder. I think the Reds right now are in a position where they can use AA for that. And they're not necessarily doing that because, De La Cruz and Encarnacio Strand both are starting in AAA. So I don't know if that's organizations trying to kind of change the narrative of how the minor league system works, of utilizing AAA to develop talent, additional talent, or if it's just one of those things where teams are just use a AAA to win, right? It's not that case for Louisville right now. They're starting the season 0-3, but they're trying to get in a position to win, and we'll see. But no, not anybody in the immediate future for Baltimore sitting in AA right now. I think there is one guy, Carp like in the stream. What's up, Bubba? That we haven't talked about yet, which was the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and that's Jackson Holliday. Jackson Holliday is Matt Holliday's son, and
that's what I thought. I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So we saw Matt Holliday's career from beginning to end in Major League Baseball, and now we're going to see his son's career from beginning to end. So we're officially at that point in our lives, Bobby.
Yep, we're turning over.
Carl, thank you for liking the stream, man. So we're at that position now, and Matt Holliday also has a 15-year-old son, which I didn't even know this existed. He's the number 1 prospect of the class of 2026 or 2027, whatever his graduating.
Sweet. So he's got 2. So these brothers could be playing on the same team.
Maybe, right?
That'd
I think that's an interesting thing to think about. Is hopefully Baltimore is not in a position in 3 years and where they're drafting number 1 overall again. So they don't necessarily have to, but who knows? That would be interesting. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the last time we had brothers play on the same team. My mind automatically goes to the Alomar brothers, but there had to have been guys since the 90s that are brothers that have played together. So anybody that's listening in the chat right now, if you could think of anyone else that it could be, I'm trying to let me think here for a minute. I'm trying to go through the 2000s here.
I'm looking it up right now. Okay.
Man.
Well, Todd, I'll tell you to stop thinking because you hit the last one on the head, dude.
Is that right?
Roberto
Alomar
and
brothers.
Alomar.
Yeah,
last two to play together.
Indians.
The Padres in '88 and '89, and then the Indians in '99 and 2000, and then again for the White Sox in 03-04.
Yeah, that's they were on the couldn't beat the Braves Indians teams of the '90s together. Sandy Alomar being one of the best.
And the only other brothers to ever do it are the Alou brothers.
And that's probably
Felipe, Jesus, and Matty.
Yeah, that's the old Alou brothers, the ones that ended up. I think Felipe ended up becoming a manager, or he did become a manager, and then his son Moises became a powerhouse in the '90s for the. Obviously, the man that was impacted the most by the Steve Bartman incident was Moises Alou, but had some good years with the Marlins, the Cubs, and the Astros in his time. But it seems so. If we're gonna put a bow on the Baltimore Orioles, what's kind of your what's your soliloquy at the end? Oh, the Boones, but the Boones would have been in like.
The Boones never played together.
They never played on the same team.
Nope, because Brett went to Seattle when Aaron came up.
That's right.
And then Brett got huge.
Brett was juicing. He looks a lot different now too. If you look at a picture of Brett Boone,
I'm sure he's probably a lot smaller.
No, he's still yoked, but he's had a lot of plastic surgery on his face.
Ooh. I don't even know if I want to go look at it.
Dude,
quick side note. Did you see Vince McMahon? What he looks like now?
Yeah.
Good night, dude. What happened to him?
I don't know.
I guess that's what happens when you make $21 billion for selling the WWE, but whatever.
He's chilling. He's just seeing what extremes he can take again. There's an interesting thing about wrestling, if we're going to talk about it, where the body composition of wrestling has changed. I was just listening to somebody talk about. I was actually listening to someone talk to Logan Paul about it, which is fucking weird because he's in the WWE now, so it's kind of weird to hear it. But he was just talking about how the steroid era of wrestling was obviously in the 90s as well, right? Because that was when they were just bringing millions and millions of dollars worth of steroids through South Beach. But how guys like, like Stone Cold Steve Austin and those guys were so monstrous, and Goldberg, he talked about Goldberg, and Vince McMahon used to look like that too.
He still looks like that.
And if you look at a picture, I know, but if you look at a picture of Vince McMahon from like 99 to 2000, he was huge, and he was in his like late 50s, early 60s. But now you would have, I mean, his mustache is hilarious, but
terrible.
You look at his face now and you're like, he just looks younger now than he used to even then. But it's clearly because he's asked a plastic surgeon to just take his skin and kind of like a Shar-Pei, push it forward and then stretch it all the way back and tie it in a little ponytail. But yes. Hilarious. Vince McMahon's new face is hilarious. I love it. I've actually, as an adult, again, I'm getting interested in wrestling again. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe I've hit the core memory as a child, like that trigger. But I'm actually getting interested in wrestling again. I'm gonna try to slowly wean Declan into the wrestling world and see how he takes to it.
Oh my goodness, that's great. But no, sorry we got off track. To answer your original question, to put a bow on it, if you're the Orioles, strap in for this season. I think it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to definitely, it's going to have its ups and downs, depending on if the rotation can keep it together. But if you're really looking, 2-3 years out, that's kind of your timeline here. I think by 2025, the Orioles will be in the playoffs and making a push. I think they've got a lot of young talent. As long as they bring it up and develop it and don't trade it and continue to build and bring in some veterans. I think in 2 years, I think we're looking at a playoff contention, potentially World Series contending Baltimore Orioles team.
I like it. Yeah, I think. Obviously we here at Rally Towel Sports, we like to cover these small market teams and go through kind of the peaks and valleys that it takes to have the success at the professional, the major league level, if you will. And Baltimore is a team, unfortunately, that hasn't struck gold like Tampa Bay and Cleveland has, where they've done enough to get good right now, right? But I put the Orioles and the Reds kind of in a similar category, except it's flipped, right? I think the Reds have done an exceptional job of getting pitching ready.
Yep.
Right. Between Ashcraft, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo. Whereas the Orioles have done an exceptional job of getting all the hitting ready, right? With Rutschman, Cedric Mullins, et cetera, all the guys we talked about. So I think that to be a smaller market organization, you can't put the money into both sides. You put the money into the young talent that you can. And, you make sure that their rookie contracts are flush enough that by year 4 or 5, you're probably not extending them. The Orioles haven't extended anybody in a very long time. So, I agree with you. I'm interested to see what 2 years looks like from now for Baltimore. Yeah, especially with who knows what's going to happen in the AL East. That's a monster to be in, right? Because you're looking at Toronto, Boston, and New York that all kind of have an open checkbook for what they're going to do or what they're trying to do, and then. Right. And then on the other side of that, you still have Tampa Bay and Baltimore who are beating these, billion-dollar, $700 million, billion-dollar organizations in series. So really interested to see how that pans out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. I think that little comparison between the Reds and the Orioles was spot on. I'm very excited for the Reds pitching the next couple of years. I'm not as excited for the lineup, but it's not terrible. So,
right.
But on the other hand, Baltimore's in a lot. Their lineup is looking fantastic, and their rotation, So,
right.
No, I like that.
Thanks, man. I'm looking at the box score today from the the Giants White Sox game. White Sox going down 16-6 to the Giants. Lance Lynn giving up 8 and 4 in a third inning. Ugh. Sheesh. Rough go for him coming off the World Baseball Classic. But yeah, man, what do you think about
the White Sox have given up 31 runs to the Giants in this series?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Good night.
Crazy. What do you think about? All right, Ryan's kind of bringing it in. What do you think about the Reds so far?
I mean, bullpen's been disappointing. Obviously, I don't think that's a shock to anybody. I love TJ Friedl. I think he's going to be a great addition. Dude hustles his ass off to make plays, and there's a lot to look forward to. I think Jonathan India. I think he's starting to. I just hope that he can keep the glove together for majority of the season. We've already seen a few hiccups from him with the glove, and that's obviously had some impact on the games. But I think the Tyler Stephenson's been great. I think he's one of the bright spots for the Reds. He's been phenomenal, and I hope that he continues to get more playing time. At least the majority of it, because obviously you've seen how he's been able to impact the game. So, I mean, overall, I know everybody was like, super gung ho, and I think Marty Brennaman was the one to kind of check everybody and be like, hey, don't get too excited. Like, this is a team in rebuild mode. Like, you just strap in. Like, it's going to be a long season. We're going to have some things to cheer about, but don't expect to be a playoff contending team this year.
Yeah, I think it's fair, right? I agree with you. Jonathan India, Tyler Stephenson, both, red hot with the bat to start the year. TJ Friedl also hitting the ball very well. I think the Reds may have found an actual leadoff hitter in TJ Friedl, which I think is great. It's been a little bit of time since they've had a true leadoff hitter. They've been just kind of plug and playing leadoff hitters for a decade at this point.
Right.
But I think the bright spot that everyone's trying to hold on to and is interesting is the start of Jason Volser's start to the year. He's hit 3 home runs in 5 games. He's, putting bat on ball. He's playing a good first base, but when Joey Votto comes back, they got to make a decision, and the decision is going to be between Will Myers and Jason Volser. And are you going to rotate this lefty righty thing that they're going to probably end up doing with those two, right? Because Volser's getting a lot of PT because there's no Joey Votto. So,
what are your thoughts on? Because I love Volson at first. I think I think he could potentially be the future there. And
Vosler, whatever's Volser,
Vosler. I don't know what it is, but. Sliding Votto to the DH spot. Sliding Votto to the DH and just letting him stay healthy and just hit for average and putting him in that second or third slot in the lineup and just letting him get on base.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that's going to come up from that too is, are you going to continue to catch Tyler Stephenson a lot? Because they're rostering 3 catchers right now, right? Between him, Luke Maile, and Kirk Casale. And my understanding of what David Bell's objective was that Tyler Stephenson would play first base and Joey Votto would DH, and when Votto wasn't, or when Stephenson was catching, that Will Myers could play first base. And now Vosler's kind of come on and had this really hot start. So do you just let it ride? Right. And Charlie's asking a question of, or he's making a statement that Joey should rest more to contribute throughout the year. And obviously he's going through a rehabilitation start in Louisville right now. My brother actually got to go watch them on opening night and got to watch Votto play in a Bats uniform, which he said was kind of weird, but it was good. But yeah, I think that it's a good spot to have. I think offensive production doesn't seem to be an issue right now. They're scoring a fair amount of runs, and again, it's April, so it's hot peaks and valleys of baseball exist. You get hot. Vosler's hot right now. I appreciate David Bell keeping him in the lineup and playing the hot hand. I think that's an important thing as you're trying to scrap together wins to not have a 100 loss season. I think that's really, really the objective that the Reds have right now, is not to lose 100 games. At least I hope that's the case. I'm assuming they're not going to throw the season away. That's the optimist in me still. But, I think that there's nothing wrong with allowing Joey Votto to take his time in Louisville and get comfortable because he's still striking out 2 to 3 times a game right now. It doesn't look like he's swinging the bat as well as he normally does. And I say that in his first at bat for Louisville, he had a home run, but he's gone like 1 for 4, 1 for 5, 1 for 5 with 2 to 3 strikeouts a game. So I think it's just a matter of him. And I'm sure Votto's an interesting guy. He's probably taking his time trying to figure out where the swing is comfortable and taking a lot of pitches to
he's
get
probably
there
trying
too.
some shit too.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that's a part of kind of what he's trying to do right now. But we'll see, man. I think we're in a unique spot as a Reds fan where there's a lot of offensive production. We haven't got to say that since 2020 either. It's been a minute, but yeah, pitching wise, bullpen's horrendous. Not shocked. The fact that Hunter Strickland is in AAA and fucking Fernando Cruz is still in the Reds bullpen just completely baffles me. I don't understand that at all.
I don't know, man. Like I don't understand a lot of the moves they made from the pitching side of things, coming into the season. We had talked about it. I mean, San Martin's been okay, but and Gabal was all right, but I mean, like there were better options. I feel like coming into the season, and we just don't have them on the field right now or in the rotation.
Yeah, Derek Law and Alex Young are really the two bright spots of the bullpen, and those are two guys that, if you would have asked me, I don't know, 45 days ago if I've ever heard of them, I would have said no. You know what I mean? Like I only know of them now because of being on the Reds roster. So, bullpen's bad. There's not a nice way to say it. They're bad, and it's going to cost them games. It's going to cost them a lot of games actually, because I think that Lodolo is going to get control. Ashcraft has pitched well so far. Hunter Green's struggled a little bit with control himself. As I've said before, you're going to get 4 to 5 innings from Hunter Green. That's what he's done his whole time as a professional pitcher. He doesn't pitch deep into games because he has to throw a lot of pitches to get outs. He's a strikeout pitcher, and he has to work deep into counts to get there. But if that's the case, if your opening day starter, the number one guy in your rotation, is going to average 5 innings and your bullpen's bad, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that's where I think the Reds kind of failed a little bit, is they didn't build the back end of the bullpen to help the front end of the rotation, if you catch my drift.
For sure.
I think we're going to see a huge rotation of pitchers coming through. Overton pitched bad in his start. I think if he pitches bad again in his next start and Justin Dunn's not off the IL, we're going to see somebody else pitch. We're going to bring somebody up to pitch. If Sessa had a pretty decent outing, but again, he's a 4 to 5 inning guy. He's not a deep into the game guy. So if the bullpen sucks, you're not going to win games with him on the mound. So that's the big thing to me where I get frustrated when I look at the 26-man roster from A to Z, is that you historically, at least and when we've seen the Reds be successful, the bullpen's been kind of the piece of it, right? Like you could bring in Lucas Sims and TJ Antone and Michael Lorenzen and Amir Garrett up until a couple of years ago. And then you had a closer that could close games out. And I think Alexi Diaz he could be that guy, right? But you got to get him to a fucking point in the game where he can close the game out. And they're not getting him there. And you can't just expect them to score 6 to 10 runs a game, because you're just not going to do that every outing. You're just not. It's baseball. They're going to catch a Corbin Burns a few times a year, throw a Jim or a Brandon Woodruff or Jack Flaherty, whomever, insert any ace in the NL Central, but they're going to catch that, right? That's who they're playing in the series, so or the most series against. So if your bullpen can't get you through innings 5 through 8 to get to 9 to your closer, then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
you're not going to win close games. So. You're seeing the same thing in Detroit. It's happening to them too, except the rotation sucks as well. They're just pretty bad overall. But so we'll see how it goes. I think I said it before. I think they're on track to. We'll see 57 different people on the roster this year.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a merry-go-round on who we see. But Pop's coming to the comment. Bell needs to let the starters pitch longer, have them get through rough spots, grow mentally tough. Can't learn when you're pulled. To your point, can't hurt since the bullpen isn't stellar.
Yeah, but you can't throw 83 pitches in 3 innings either.
Yeah, that's the big thing. This is the first game of the season too. You want this? I mean, and it's not a season where we're expecting to do great things. So I understand the pull there.
Yeah. Well, and look, I think that when you get through the month of April and get into May, you'll see him let guys get to the 100 pitch count. But I mean, it's not historical.
It's too early to try to hang on.
Yeah, and historically, David Bell's not a guy that lets guys get over 100 pitches. He hasn't been that way ever in his time as a Reds manager. That's kind of always been the question mark with him is why do you pull guys in the 6th inning when he did that to Sonny Gray a couple times in the 2020 season where Sonny Gray got into the 6th inning around like 90 pitches. He's given up 2 hits and he doesn't come out. But they had the bullpen to finish the game. Now you're in a position where I think you get a guy like Nick Lodolo into the 6th inning in May and June, and he's at 90 pitches. You got to let him at least start the 7th inning, right? Yeah. So I think that through April, you got to take pitch count into consideration because guys have to work up to the numbers. And now there are guys that they're pitching. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of agenda is different. Like a guy like Garrett Cole is ready to throw 100 pitches at the beginning of the year because that's how he's kind of set up his back end or the back end of getting through spring training where he could throw a lot more pitches. But Hunter Green historically is not a guy that has thrown more than 90 pitches in a start. And there's a part of that too. And now Garrett Cole is a bad example to use this because he throws hard too. But these guys that throw really, really hard, they don't go as deep into games as they used to either, because throwing 100 plus miles an hour doesn't always get you deeper. It doesn't usually get you deeper into games anymore because you're not striking everybody out like you used to.
Right. Yeah. Because hitters can actually hit it now. Did I send you that video of Barry Bonds turning on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball from Eric Gagne?
Yeah, insane.
And the first one he pulled foul, and it was clocked at 101.
Yep. Yeah, Charlie. I follow what you're saying there. I'm just saying that you can't say that in April. You just got to wait. If he's doing it as the season progresses, then I hear your point there. But there is some buildup as you get early into the season, especially with colder weather when you're playing in the Midwest, like they are, where you just got to let guys build into a pitch count. It's
and I mean,
I don't think Hunter Green threw more than 40 pitches in spring training. So whereas a guy like Garrett Cole got into like the 60s. So it's the natural progression is different for every pitcher, and they're on a program to get to that point.
Yeah, and I mean, and I would much rather them not pitch him deep into games at this point. Because there's not going to be a ton to play for this season, so there's no point wearing him out. And, just putting that extra wear and tear on the arm. So, I mean, as you get into midseason, I don't want to see him get pulled, after 80 pitches. As long as he's getting out of innings clean, if he's throwing a lot of pitches, that's fine. But now if he's like, going into each inning and walking the first guy and getting, putting himself in bad situations quickly and then magically getting out of it, then I can see them pulling. But as long as he's got control of the game, even if he's got a high pitch count, I think he'll let it ride.
Yeah, and I think Hunter Green's kind of the example I'm assuming that he's going about. But you look at his start, 3 1/3 inning, 83 pitches.
That's a lot of pitches in 3 innings.
3 walks, 5 hits, 3 runs, a home run. That whip coming out of that game at a whopping 2.4.
Yeah, it's just
whereas Nick Lodolo threw 5 innings, but he threw 109 pitches, which is around the average that you want from a starter, right?
Yeah, it's a good start.
It just sucks that he got to that in the 5th inning. You're not going to let a guy throw more than 110 pitches in a game in the current stature of the game, right? It's not like how it used to be.
Right.
So that's
in very extreme circumstances will you see somebody gets 120, 130 pitches.
Yeah,
and it's very rare.
Usually they're throwing a no-hitter or a perfect game.
Yes.
That's about the only time where that happens anymore. It's not like when Nolan Ryan played where he threw.
And they look at you, say, if you pull me,
respect.
I'll take you out.
Yeah,
I will take you out if you take me out.
Yeah, there's not a lot of that anymore. The game's just transcended in a completely different direction. So
yeah.
All right, man. I think that's a podcast, right?
Yeah. I believe it is, sir. That is a quick quip on the O's.
Yeah. Next week, we will have, I don't know
special
if we can call him a
guest.
special guest, but
Special guest.
Mr. Aaron Mailing will be joining us on Thursday evening to discuss his hometown Cleveland Guardians. So you'll definitely want to tune in. Aaron is, if he has anything, he is passionate about Cleveland sports, and I know he's going to come in with some really interesting hometown factoids about those Guardians. So make sure you're coming in here next Thursday. Make sure you're tuning in next Wednesday for the Generous Degenerates. Obviously, we're going to, last night was a banger talking about betting on baseball. I think that's a new thing to Ohio. So if you haven't listened to – yeah, if you haven't listened to last night's episode yet, please go to Spotify or Apple or wherever you ingest your podcast. They're going to have that there. But I think that's a podcast. So with that, Mr. Lehman,
sir,
I'm Todd. We'll see y'all later.